Hey, everybody, welcome back to Great Mondays Radio. Today we have Ekaterina Solomeina, who is the co-founder of Future London Academy. And I thought I would have Ekaterina on because she runs executive school for creatives. And I find this idea of kind of these organizations that have staff and then have collaborators, but then also have customers, we would call them. But it's really much more about creating a culture across those, right? So it's not just the employees. And so I thought we could talk a little bit about that. And also she has she's done some experimentation and some learning around how to bring in more neurodiversity, how to respect that and honor that. I think we're going to talk a little bit about that. Ekaterina, it's really nice to have you on. Thanks for coming on Great Mondays Radio.
Thank you for having me, Josh. And by the way, I love the name of the podcast. I personally love Mondays, so I think Great Mondays is such a great name. And I was just thinking this Sunday that I was so looking forward to going to the office on Monday because I get coffee from my favorite place. They usually close on the weekends. I see the team because Monday is when we all come together and have all the internal meetings. So it's so much fun. And it looks like, one of those screenshots from a movie when everyone is laughing and hugging and doing some productive work. And also it's like a perfect day when I have my perfect Muay Thai workout. So it's a separate conversation, but I also do Thai boxing. But it's such a wonderful day. Monday is one of my favorite days. So I love that I am on a podcast that's called Great Mondays because Mondays are great.
I'm so glad you appreciate it, because sometimes people are like, I don't get it. What are you talking about? So that's good. Ekaterina, tell us a little bit about the Future London Academy. It's such an interesting kind of hybrid endeavor. This was a project you started as almost like a hobby. Is that right?
Correct. It started very much from a passion and personal need. So my backstory is that I come from a creative background. I worked in creative industry for a very long time as a creative director with some of the most amazing agencies, won some awards. And I worked with Michael Wolff, who is a founder of Orleans and quite a celebrity in graphic design world. And he just turned 90 last year, which is crazy. And he's quite a special human. So I worked with him, still work with him actually. And I worked with Donatella Versace. So I've seen the best in the design world. But one thing that I've been missing throughout these years is a place where I can learn. Because the more senior you get in any profession, the less new information you can find. As a junior, it's very easy to go on YouTube and watch something. But as a senior, you need to talk about culture and other things that, again, I'm sure your lovely audience can relate to. And yeah, I couldn't find any place, so I decided to create one. And guess what? There are other people, turns out, who are interested in the same thing. So it kind of grew from that very much side project and a hobby to a company now that, yeah, is international and has incredible collaborators, programs, and courses for senior creatives.
Very cool. So one of the challenges that you've expressed is that you just, and I feel like you're experiencing what all organizations eventually are going to experience, which is you have people in all sorts of different places, right? So we have extreme distribution, but then you also have, and you look for extreme diversity. And I wanted to hear a little bit about, I mean, the Future London Academy is over 10 years old, and so you've been through iterations. Can you tell us a little bit about, and I want to get right into this idea of getting a really diverse kind of staff, getting these people. What was the pain point? Like, what first started where you're like, oh, we need to address this? Or was it something, were you ahead of it and you're like, oh, well, I know this is something that did you just start with that?
It's a great question. And I suppose it comes a little bit back to your introduction in terms of what we as a team and I personally see in the industry, because basically any challenge that I experience or any problem that I know about comes from three perspectives. From my background in working in large organizations and kind of what I've experienced and saw around myself, then obviously through creating incredible courses and events where we collaborate with the CEOs and chief design officers and chief creative officers from some of the cool companies, and I hear the challenges that they have. And then obviously now I have my own company where we have a team and we have our own culture and our challenges that, again, I need to think about and can reimagine from ground up, because when it's your company, you can do whatever you want. So therefore, you can actually make changes based on what you see. So I suppose all my answers today will be coming partially from the perspective of doing things within the company that I run, partially from seeing things in the industry, how they've been done and are done, and partially from everything that I hear from our clients, from our community, from our collaborators in terms of the best practices and challenges that are happening in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to your question, what are the challenges? What is going on? What is the number one thing, especially in the creative community? And I don't think I would say anything groundbreaking here, but with the kind of return back to the offices and kind of in general creative culture being quite disrupted by people working from home, not working from home. Do we need an office? As creatives, we love being in the same space. This what created the very special atmosphere in any creative agency, those cool fancy offices with great things, and suddenly it is changing. So there are lots of discussions in the industry about mental health, well-being, balance of work. But I think one aspect that gets forgotten throughout this conversation is why do we have these challenges? Why there is a crisis of mental health and well-being? And the answer is because we have diversity of people with diversity of needs and challenges and life experiences and stories. Everyone is different. So no matter what solution you come up with as a company, as a leader, it's probably not going to serve to every single person because you come from one angle and one perspective. And specifically what I suppose is even more forgotten is the question of neurodiversity. And that's something that actually 15 to 20% of the entire population experience. So it's not necessarily a very rare thing that only certain people need to think about. It's basically 1/5 of the entire globe is on a spectrum of neurodiversity. Top of that,
well, I'm going to interrupt you. Let's, can you, I feel like this term has been thrown around a lot. How do you talk, like, what is it? How do you define it? Let's just get that on the table.
Sure. I suppose the very straightforward way of neurodiversity is basically differently wired brains. So every brain is wonderfully unique, different, and can come up with different ideas. And especially in the creative industry, the more different we are, the better. The more different our brains. Weird, exactly. And that's why creatives come up with the best ideas, because they see the world differently. So this differently wired brain could, I suppose there are lots of terms around neurodiversity like ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia. There are other, I suppose, conditions that some people heard about that kind of fall under this bucket of neurodiversity. But essentially, it's differently wired brains. And one thing that I want to state very clearly from the beginning, it doesn't mean worse. It doesn't mean it's less of something, which is a common misconception. If we talk about dyslexia, people can say like, oh, these people can't write or can't spell. It could sometimes kind of be visible through different. Basically, people can't sequence or sequence things differently. So it could be sequence of letters, therefore the spelling might be incorrect. But in general, they just they have difficulty sequencing. But on that's kind of the negative side they can see, but also they have better empathy, they have better spatial reasoning, and they can be like very creative in a different way. So you can't say they have less of something, because they also have more of something. And I think that's what's often forgotten, that neurodiverse people bring a lot to the table, and they actually are the ones who come up with these incredible ideas. But to make sure we create an environment for any diversity, and specifically for neurodiversity, we need to think how we design our offices, how we create the environments for them to be their best selves.
Yeah. So to me, it sounds like you're in a the perfect kind of context for um, understanding, experiencing neurodiversity, right? Because your attention is driven towards creatives and you run a creative endeavor. And so you're going to probably have a higher propensity of self-selecting neurodiverse customers and staffers because of this. So it's the question then is, okay, now you're really experiencing this. So how have you been able to address this? Like if you're saying it's not a problem, so if they're not doing things worse, why do you have to come up with a solution? Or what is it maybe that's the question. What is the challenge that this neurodiverse is attracting more neurodiverse people, or making them understand that it's not like what I'm sorry, I'm real-time processing my question here. What is it
No,
that we're trying
yeah,
to
that was
solve for?
that's a very good question. And as with any diversity, as you probably, being in the topic of culture, you know that actually non-diverse groups perform better in terms of efficiency because they need to spend less time communicating and all that. Now, the quality of their ideas or projects, whatever, is not as good. So even though it might be easier to run any non-diverse team, let's say I'm a woman of a certain age and I would love just to hire women who are the same as me, come from the same background, and will understand each other so well that it will be so easy to run. Now, it probably won't be incredible company if we create something like that, and our ideas will be very limited to what we see and what we know. So the same with any diversity, including neurodiversity. If it's 1/5 of population and you don't consider what might be different about these people, then you might exclude them. They might not work for your company, and you might miss out on incredible talents and ideas that these people bring. So now comes the question, what can we do to make sure that these people come into our workforce and then also not suffer in the workforce? Because what's happening now, especially with a lot of people, I'm sure you've heard that a lot of, especially women, are now diagnosed with ADHD at the later stages. They're 30, 40 years old, 50 years old, because it has been misdiagnosed specifically in women for a very long time. So suddenly this kind of curve is going back up.
I didn't know that.
And everyone's suddenly discovering that, oh my God, this thing that I've been thinking about my whole life, it's actually something very normal. And this is how my brain is wired. And I've just been masking my behavior to fit what normal looks like. And
to succeed in the way that it's been defined.
Exactly. And I like that you said how it's been defined, because it doesn't mean it's right. It just has been defined in a certain way. And therefore, everyone kind of has to follow the same rules. And some of them just don't make sense. And it's fascinating because going back to the original, the beginning of our conversation about mental health and well-being, if you mask your behaviors, if you mask, and by masking we mean we try to pretend that we think and feel exactly like the person next to us, even though actually what's going through our head is very different. And for example, I don't feel like smiling now, but maybe everyone else around the table is smiling, so I will smile because it seems like the right thing to do.
Because we want to be part of the group. We want to be, that is a genetically encoded survival mechanism, right? Oh, I want to be just like them.
You are very right. Exactly. So we try to be like our peers who have very different brains from ours. Everyone has a different brain, and they might be more loud and extroverted, or they might be okay working in a noisier conditions. And we feel like, well, if they're okay doing that, we must be okay doing it. But internally we are suffering, and we just need a quiet spot somewhere to hide and just do our work.
That very damaging question creeps in, which I've struggled with, and many other people that I've worked with. What's wrong with me?
Exactly.
Right? I can't. Everybody's doing it one way, and I can't do it. Something must be wrong with me.
Exactly. And there is nothing wrong with you or anyone who is listening, because
Oh,
every single
stop
one
it.
of us is different. And I think just realizing that is such a relief for so many people. Some people are afraid of being diagnosed with whether it is ADHD, dyslexia, whatever that is, because they will feel like that label will kind of
Yeah,
haunt them throughout their lives. But
sure.
some actually find it very relieving knowing that that is okay. You just have a differently wired brain. It's not worse, it's not better, it's just different. And you just need to know how to work with it. That's all.
So you're swimming in a world of creatives, a world of neurodiverse people, and you can, and I'm sure you have, given the talk of, "Hey, everybody, you're all wired differently." Was that enough, or did you have to do something else to make sure that people felt okay?
Good question. And I have to say, I am not a psychologist. I'm not a medical professional. So I'm definitely not the person to give lectures on neurodiversity. I do it from my first-hand experience. But we do have incredible experts on neurodiversity who teach in our programs. We have incredible, for example, Emma Wee, who is a neurodiversity coach specifically. So she is neurodiverse herself, and she talks very openly about her experience. And
Mm-hmm.
also from the medical and psychological perspective, what does it mean to be neurodiverse, and how as leaders can we manage our needs, but also how can we
Mm-hmm.
create environments for neurodiverse teams. So I have to say, all my knowledge does not come from myself. It comes from incredible experts that we bring on our courses and programs. And specifically, one thing that Emma talked about was creating these environments for people to work comfortably. I mean, kind of common sense, but especially we very often don't actually listen to what people need, because we might say that we all love coming to the office. We can vote like who wants to come to the office, who wants to work from home, something like that. Very generic, very abstract. But what does it mean coming to the office? Does it mean we sit quietly in the room and we just like presence of each other, and that's what coming to the office means for us?
Mm.
What does our office look like? Is it an open space where I can't hide and it's very noisy and busy because salespeople are making calls all the time? Is it a creative space where everyone is so extroverted and every brainstorm is such a fun activity, and I'm the only one who doesn't like that way of brainstorming, so therefore I can never contribute even if we are all in person? So we kind of often do not actually discuss what we mean by creating an environment for that creativity. And one thing that we actually did with our team after opened our eyes on everything in the world of neurodiversity is we created a
Mm-hmm.
manual of me.
The
And I'm sure
manual of me. So you, let's repeat the instructor's name, Emma Wee.
Emma Wee, yeah.
Yeah. And so she came in and taught a class on for the academy, the manual of me, correct? And
Well,
then
she talked about all sorts of things, neurodiversity, how different,
okay.
whether it is you have dyslexia, dyspraxia, autism, ADHD, what does it mean, and what does it mean to have someone like that in the team? It's hugely valuable. And I would say if any company still hasn't invested in understanding, at least understanding neurodiversity, what does it actually mean without those
Yeah.
labels that, as I said, ADHD people are just all over
They
the
can't
place,
focus. Yeah.
that can't focus, which is not true, as you probably know. Actually, ADHD people can have intense periods of focus. It's just the problem is they have a bit of too much focus, and they actually can switch between things very quickly. But if they love someone, and I'm sure you had those experiences when you just engrossed in the project and you just work the entire night without even understanding what time it is, those intense periods of focus are very
Yeah.
normal for people with ADHD. So again, those labels that we hear about are not helpful. And first we need to do is understand what does this each condition actually mean? What are the benefits? So ADHD people, they come up with big ideas very quickly. They can think of the vision. They have like these big things that they can quickly generate, but they probably will struggle more with kind of narrowing things down or kind of hitting the deadlines if there is no pressure, external pressure. So there might be other things that we need to create.
Guilty as charged.
Well, again, this is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. It's just knowing that and understanding
Yeah.
how, now that we know all of this about our team members, about ourselves, what do we do with this? And the solution for us was Menu of Me, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners and yourself heard about from. It actually comes from a lot of tech companies in Silicon
Yeah.
Valley. A lot
Yep.
of, especially CEOs, love to write a menu of me. Like, this is how I work. If you want to email me, I respond at 5 a.m. and whatever.
Right. 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 Right.
Now,
Let me
the
let me
deal,
just give a
yeah.
let me just give a shout out to so I did a little bit of research. So Matthew Knight was the originator of this idea of the Manual of Me, and he has you can find him. He has a Manual of Me website, but he credits the rise of the idea of personal user manual to the New York Times author Adam Bryant. So I just want to make
Mm.
sure that the listeners understand where it comes from. It's actually been out in the world and evolving for a while. And so I was very, when you started to talk about this, I've heard of it, bits and bobs, but to hear more about it and how it works for you is really kind of where we are. So I just wanted to interrupt and just give him Matthew some credit for his creation. So this is a tool that you've brought into your team to describe themselves. Like, how does that, what is it like?
Good question. And thank you so much for bringing the credits and the history, because it has been, as you said, in the industry for a while, and even we've heard of it for a while before we actually understood what to do with it and decided to do something about it. And it kind of, we create our own version. There are many versions on the internet that you can look up and kind of copy if you want. We'll provide the link to our version if anyone wants. We have a Miro board. It's open for everyone to kind of choose.
We'll put all that info in the show notes.
But essentially it has 5 sections, and basically everyone in the team needs to fill each of these sections, and then we discuss it. So the 5 sections are a little kind of a fun introduction. It's kind of just a conversation starter, I suppose. Like, how do you like your coffee, or what do you like to talk about, something like that. But the 3 key sections are how do you communicate? So basically, are you a WhatsApp person or a Slack person, or do you like talking in person? When you are briefed, do you like to see the text written versus you'd like someone to read it out to you and discuss? And again, this is very important, going back to the question of neurodiversity, because different conditions within the neurodiverse family, I suppose, require different skills, and they kind of have different patterns.
Yeah.
So some people are much
Yeah.
better hearing things, and they understand information much faster by hearing. Some by visual, kind of looking and reading, they can scan information quickly. Each of us is different. So we can't really say that the culture in our company, we all talk to each other and we expect after the meeting to kind of leave the meeting knowing what you need to do. You need to understand that different people within the team will understand information in a different way. So some will need a written version of it. So for example, we have written documents throughout the meeting where we document everything we discuss, so anyone can go back to the notes and kind of read it if the kind of conversational style wasn't the best way for them to digest information. So first section is about communication, how you collaborate. Like, do you like meetings? Like, do you like them on Zoom, in person? So anything that is relevant. Second question is about growth and professional growth, and how do you like your feedback? That, I suppose, less about neurodiversity, but potentially more about cultural differences, which I'm sure you talked about on your podcast, about how different people understand feedback differently and how we like giving feedback in a different way and expect everyone to want to receive it in the same way, which is not true. And very much, I'm coming from a very straightforward culture where I like saying things as they are and I like hearing things as they are. And British culture is the opposite, where you kind of never say what
You never
you
say what you
mean.
actually mean.
And that was confusing for me for so long because I couldn't understand what people want. And when I was communicating, giving feedback to someone, people get offended. So anyway, this is an opportunity for everyone to say, you know what, I like my feedback to be this way. I understand it better. Don't throw things at me immediately. It will just freak me out. Just give me the context, whatever. I like, for example, data. I love when people bring me numbers. So whether it is we want to make this decision because, I don't know, 30% of our users or our customers or something did this. So bring me some sort of information I can actually dig deeper in. So I love looking at any sort of numbers. I mean, my first degree is engineering, so maybe that's where it comes from.
There you go.
So love numbers.
I like a story, so there you go.
See, so that could be like a very different kind of pattern of behavior. And so in that section about personal growth, we also talk about strengths. And actually that's important, that links back to another research about strengths, that we all perform better when we focus on, or we spend our day doing things that we think we are good at. Now, super subjective. And the key here is what we think we are good at. So it technically doesn't mean that, and it can be very nuanced, but essentially by asking people what their strengths are, you understand suddenly what kind of things people would want to work on. If, for example, I say, I love public speaking, I think I'm actually very good at interviews and I'm nailing one right now, then the next time there is an opportunity to do anything, then my manager or my colleague will know that this is something I'll enjoy doing because I think I'm good at it. So therefore, I probably will jump on that opportunity. Or it could be, I love solving really difficult problems, the ones that no one can solve. And then, yeah, so suddenly this is a great person to solve. So it could be kind of in a different way. So kind of professional growth and anything around that. And then the next session is about needs and expectations. And that's again, going back to the question of neurodiversity. What do I need to be productive?
Needs and expectations. All right. Talk to me about needs and expectations. What does that mean?
And I have to say, if anyone listening now already forgot anything we discussed so far, I would say focus on these needs and expectations. And if you can discuss that within your team, even without the context of neurodiversity, I would say that would probably give you the biggest difference within your culture, your performance, whatever you're working on. So that we have kind of several subsections about what do I need to be productive, what stresses me out, and what gives me energy. So essentially, yeah. And it's so funny how, actually, question to you, Josh, can you give me an example what gives you energy? You know, what, like, you know, that day when you're like, I'm nailing it, like, I'm so good. What gives you energy?
Well, it's just interacting with other people, having these conversations. I love this. I love talking and solving problems with my clients. It's like, I'm just like, when that ends, like yesterday, I don't know if I got much done, but we had a productive call with one of my colleagues and we solved some problems. And I was just like, that was a great day, but like, there was some other things that I didn't quite get as done as I wanted to. So for me, it's interacting and solving problems, let's say.
Amazing. This is brilliant. And now, if you've been weeks without interacting with anyone and solving problems, you probably won't feel that energized, and therefore
exactly.
and your colleagues will notice that. So I think it's very important, especially if you're a manager or leader, to know what actually energizes people, when do they feel their best selves, and kind of make sure that those conditions are created.
Yeah.
What stresses me out, obviously, is the opposite of that. And it's actually quite hilarious because it's not what you think. When we started, that probably was the most surprising section across the entire workshop that we did with the team. For example, one of our colleagues mentioned that they don't like when someone asks a work question when they go to get a coffee, because coffee is the only time they're away from the desk. This is their time. They love to chat about movies, anything else, anything interesting that's happening, but not work. This is their time to take a break. They consciously take a break. And when someone jumps with a work question, that kind of ruins the break. I'm the opposite. If I'm at my desk, I am working, and please do not disturb me. I'm in a focus mode. I have something that I'm trying to accomplish. So if someone comes over to me with a work question, even if it's a really, really important question, I probably won't be in the best space to answer. But when I'm at a coffee machine, please ask me anything. My mind is free. I can answer any question, and I will be much better help to anyone.
Mm,
So you can see how these small things that are so non-intuitive and clearly were causing so much stress to someone without anyone knowing, because like, again, these things,
yeah.
some people are not bringing them up, and so it's good to know. So these are the
Yeah.
things that they discuss in the section.
What it seems to me that the what we're doing here, whether it's the manual me or something else, is we are documenting, identifying and documenting um, how we like to work and interact so that other people can not just understand that if tell me something and then I don't remember it, I'm ignoring you, right? You are looking for ways to understand how to connect with somebody. And this ultimately, to me, seems like the intensive in empathy development is really what this is all about, I think.
I love the term of intensive empathy development. This is brilliant. And you absolutely nailed it. It is about having this open conversation, so you don't start making up your own stories in your head. Why a person did something? Why did they react like that to me at the coffee machine? They must hate me. Why did they forget when we discussed this in the meeting? Because they prefer reading, not talking. Like, all of these things that we make up about people actually are very, very simple things that can be discussed up front, and just documented as well.
Yeah, yeah. And that way, you don't have to spend as much time and mental energy, right? Like our brain
Mm.
is the biggest energy suck, resource in our body, on those interpersonal pieces. And I would also say that establishing this establishes permission to discuss those things. And that to me is one of the biggest gaps that I've seen inside of workplaces where there's just not a lot of permission to talk about the things that we don't normally want to talk about. And in I've learned as brusque as you might think North Americans, Americans are, there is a lot of conflict avoidance in enterprise organizations, and this is a great start. It's a great tool, setting it up, setting those expectations. I think this is a very powerful way to really establish or reestablish a culture. There's it's almost like the first piece is the individuals, and then the second piece would be like a team charter or a project charter, right? Okay, now that we got ourselves together, now we can talk about what we're shooting to sort out. And I would go further and say these types of tools where we're establishing and getting good at establishing the needs and expectations, as you pointed out, is going to be a critical tool for organizations and product teams moving forward. Because guess what? We're going to continue to be speeding forward, and projects are going to start and they're going to stop and be over. And then we're on to the next thing. And where I see the big struggle now is that gap is that there's this gap of understanding that's growing because of all this distributed world. And so we need more of these tools, both individually, team-wise, organizationally, to really make sure that we understand other people, regardless of if they're ADHD or not. We just need to understand other people better because we don't have as many opportunities to learn from them in person. We used to be able
100%.
to.
I love what you said, and you're right about the culture, especially in big companies, kind of avoiding these conversations. And I have a theory that potentially that comes from the fear that people will ask for things. Like, if we discuss your needs and expectations, you'll say, I need 5 months off a year and this is how I work the
Yeah.
most productive, or I
Yeah.
don't want to come in at all and this is how I, and that fear stops people from having a conversation
Huh.
about what actually people need. Well, actually there won't be any big asks that you will hear, and because it's discussed with the team, and very important point about this workshop is needs to be done as a team. It's not, you should write it individually and then discuss it as a team, because that's when you create those special moments of like, I didn't know that. Oh, that's really surprising fact. So you really need to create this, as you said, open conversation where no one is afraid to actually mention things and kind of bring things up. And from there creates a culture where then you don't need conflict resolution of I felt that way because you said this, because you already kind of preempt that by creating this kind of manual where you know what the person, how the person might react, and you try to avoid those situations for that person.
Yeah, and I'll bring it back to something you said at the beginning, which is this one size fits all answer. And it feels like we both have the opportunity and new tools to customize and be connected with other people to understand them. But also we have a lot more challenges in that we don't know how to manage people. We haven't learned, relearned, or learned for the first time how to manage people in distributed teams because we've been together for, as long as, since the industrial age, we're all together in the office, 100 years. And so where I think this next decade is going to be, I'm hoping, I'm hopeful that the next decade will really be this learning how to manage for these individual differences. And maybe we can get good enough at it that it will scale, because I think that's part of the problem is that there's a lot of teams out there that just there's a lot of organizations that are just like, okay, just hire these people. We just need to get it going. I mean, after, let's say after the layoffs are over, we're gonna pick back up this year, I'm sure. Tech's gonna grow, and creative is gonna grow, and we're gonna have another upswing, and people are gonna start hiring like crazy. And it's if you aren't able to put in that energy and effort to, as you're revealing in this call, understand our teammates, the people that we're working with, and then understand our team, and then understand our company, that um, it's going to slow down the progress. It's going to slow down that creativity. And ultimately, the thing that you're talking about where it's like it's homogenous thinking is efficiency driven. Well, efficiency is what robots do, right? It's what AI does. Creativity and understanding other people is what they can't do, and coming up with those new ideas in new ways, and that those big breakthroughs are going to require this more and more. And so what I'm taking away from our conversation is, yes, how do we increase neurodiversity, but how do we increase the ability to be creative and work together even when we're not in the same room? We don't have to bring everybody back to the office. What is it? Does that sound, does
I
that
100% agree with you. And I 100% up for the culture of creativity. And what you said, effectiveness, not efficiency. We're all trying to do
mm,
something great. It's not about being efficient if you're doing the wrong thing. So definitely, I love the idea of actually creating this environment where people can thrive. And I think we are very lucky, obviously, at Future London Academy that we see how different companies operate, so we kind of see trends before they become a trend.
yes, yes.
And what we see with, again, the kind of the changes in the workspace and culture and neurodiversity, as you rightly said, there will be a big shift in terms of how people work and how people need to create the environments where the humans can thrive and not the machines.
It's almost like you need to create a report from the future of your learning. I don't know if you're thinking about that. We'll put it on the product roadmap. Ekaterina Solomeina, the co-founder and incredible leader of Future London Academy. You can learn more about this incredible program, futurelondonacademy.com. Thank you for sharing what you have learned about neurodiversity and bringing together creative teams, even when they're distributed. I am looking forward to learning more from you and your group. There's a lot of amazing stuff there. And I really appreciate you coming on Great Mondays Radio.
Thank you so much, Josh. It has been such a pleasure. And I feel like we could have had another 2 hours talking about this fascinating topic, but
Absolutely.
I'm great that we had an opportunity to discuss this. This was amazing. Thank you.
We'll do a part 2 in the future. Thank you, Katerina.
Thank you.